Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the alien ships move closer to Earth's last defense station. The massive alien fleet filled the dark space around them like angry metal stars. Each ship was 3 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their weapons could turn a human battleship into dust with one shot. Jake looked at the broken pieces of human ships floating past his window. These were the remains of Earth's proud space navy. Ships that had once protected human colonies across the galaxy now drifted as twisted metal and broken dreams. The war had lasted only 6 months, but it felt like forever. "Sir, the aliens are sending another message," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and steady hands that never shook, even when death was coming. "They want us to surrender again." Jake turned to look at her. Amy had been with him since the war started. She had seen her home planet burned by alien weapons. She had lost friends and family, but still came to work, every day with the same calm voice and clear eyes. That was what humans did. They kept going. "Send them the same answer we gave before," Jake said. His voice was quiet, but everyone on the bridge could hear him clearly. "Tell them humans do not surrender." Commander Steve Phillips looked up from his weapons station. Steve was older than the others, with gray hair and lines around his eyes from years of service. He had 3 kids back on Earth. Had 3 kids. Nobody knew what happened to Earth after the aliens took it last week. "Captain, I have an idea," Steve said. "If we are going to die here, we can make sure they remember us. I can make our reactor blow up when they board our ship. We will take a lot of them with us." Jake nodded. That was the human way. Even when losing, make the enemy pay a price they would never forget. The aliens had conquered every other species in the galaxy by being stronger and having better weapons. Most alien races saw the hopeless situation and gave up. They tried to save what they could by surrendering, but humans were different. The alien commander Admiral Vextar watched the human station from his command ship. His ship was bigger than a human city and carried enough weapons to destroy a planet. He had conquered 47 different alien species in his long career. Some fought hard at first, but they all surrendered when they saw they could not win. These humans made no sense to him. Their technology was weak. Their ships were small. Their weapons could barely scratch his shields. Any smart species would surrender and try to save some of their people. But these humans seemed to choose death over giving up. Vextar had studied human history during the war. Humans had always been like this. When their cities were bombed, they kept fighting. When their armies were beaten, they became guerrilla fighters. When they had no weapons, they made new ones from whatever they could find. It was like they did not understand that losing was possible. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "the humans are refusing to surrender again. Should we destroy the station?" Vextar looked at the small human station surrounded by his massive fleet. Inside that station were maybe 1,000 humans. They had no chance of winning. They had no chance of escape. They knew they were going to die, but they would not surrender. "No," Vextar said slowly. "We will board them and take prisoners. The High Command wants to study them." Back on the human station, Jake Morrison gathered his crew in the main corridor. There were 843 people left alive on the station. They were soldiers, engineers, doctors, and technicians. Some were old veterans, and some were young recruits who had never seen battle before this war, but they all had the same look in their eyes. "The aliens are coming aboard in 10 minutes, Jake told them. "We all know how this ends, but we are going to show them what happens when you fight humans. We do not surrender. We do not retreat. We fight until the last breath, and we make them pay for every step." Amy Carter checked her weapon and stood next to Jake. Steve Phillips finished setting the charges that would destroy the reactor. Around them, 800 other humans prepared for their final battle. None of them knew that their refusal to surrender was about to change the galaxy forever. None of them knew that their last stand would become the first chapter in a story of rebellion that would free every enslaved world. All they knew was that humans did not retreat. The alien boarding ships attached to the station with loud metal sounds. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and it would start with humans doing what they did best, fighting when everyone said they should give up. 3 months after the aliens destroyed Earth's last space station, Colonel Lisa Hayes crouched in the ruins of what used to be a shopping mall on New Boston. The planet had been a busy human colony before the war. Now alien soldiers walked the streets and alien ships flew overhead like metal vultures. The aliens thought they had won. They thought humans would accept defeat like every other species in the galaxy. But the aliens did not understand humans very well. Lisa spoke quietly into her radio. "Danny, are you ready with the explosives?" Sergeant Danny Brooks was hiding in the mountains above the road where alien supply trucks would pass. He was 28 years old and had been a demolitions expert before the war. Now he used his skills to blow up alien convoys instead of building roads. "Ready, Colonel," Danny whispered back. "These alien trucks are about to learn why humans invented guerrilla warfare." Lisa smiled in the darkness. Guerrilla warfare was something humans had perfected over thousands of years. When big armies came to conquer them, humans learned to hide, strike fast, and disappear. They learned to make the enemy afraid to travel alone or sleep peacefully. The alien convoy came down the mountain road exactly when Lisa's scouts said it would. The aliens were very organized and followed strict schedules. That made them predictable, and predictable enemies were easier to kill. Danny pressed the button that set off his explosives. The mountain road disappeared in fire and smoke. 3 alien trucks fell into the valley below. The 4th truck stopped and alien soldiers jumped out to fight back, but humans were already gone. This happened every day on dozens of human worlds. The aliens controlled the cities and the big roads, but humans controlled everything else. They struck at night and vanished before dawn. They attacked supply lines and communication towers. They made the aliens afraid to leave their bases. Dr. Helen Murphy worked in a secret laboratory hidden under the ruins of Cambridge University. Before the war, she had been studying advanced physics. Now she studied alien technology that human soldiers brought her from destroyed enemy ships. "Look at this," Helen told her team of scientists. "The aliens build their weapons using brute force. They just throw more power at every problem. But we can be smarter than that." Helen had discovered something important. Alien technology was very advanced, but it was not perfect. The aliens had focused on making bigger and stronger weapons instead of making clever ones. Human science had been going in a different direction. Humans had learned to solve problems with less power and more intelligence. "We do not need to build bigger guns," Helen explained. "We need to build smarter ones." On the planet Kepler 442b, Captain Bobby Turner led a group of human refugees who had escaped when the aliens invaded. Bobby had been a cargo ship pilot before the war. Now he flew secret missions to bring weapons and supplies to resistance fighters on different worlds. Bobby's ship was small and old, but it was fast and hard to detect. The aliens had big, powerful ships, but they were not good at catching small, quick targets. Bobby used this advantage to stay one step ahead of alien patrols. "The key," Bobby told his crew, "is to never fight fair. Fair fights are for sports games. This is war, and we fight to win." Major Katie Sullivan commanded resistance fighters on Proxima Centauri. Her planet had been one of the first to fall when the aliens invaded human space. Katie had watched alien ships burn her cities and kill her friends. Now she made sure the aliens paid a price for every day they stayed on her world. Katie's fighters were not professional soldiers. They were farmers, teachers, mechanics, and shopkeepers who had decided to fight back. They did not have military training, but they had something more important. They had anger and determination and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. "Every time we blow up one of their patrols," Katie told her fighters, "we send a message to other humans. We tell them that the war is not over. We tell them that humans do not surrender. The message was spreading across human space faster than the aliens could stop it. On every conquered world, humans were learning that they could fight back. They were learning that the aliens were not as strong as they seemed. Most importantly, they were learning that other humans were fighting too. The aliens had expected human resistance to fade away after a few weeks. Every other species they had conquered had done the same thing. There would be some small fights. At first, then the defeated species would accept their new situation and try to make the best of it. But humans kept fighting, and fighting, and fighting. Admiral Kethmos stood before the alien high command and tried to explain what was happening. "The humans do not behave like any species we have conquered before," he said. "When we kill their leaders, new leaders appear. When we destroy their weapons, they build new ones. When we attack their cities, they disappear into the countryside and keep fighting." The alien leaders did not understand. They had conquered the galaxy by being stronger than everyone else. They had better ships, better weapons, and better technology. How could a weak species like humans continue to resist? What the aliens did not know was that humans had been preparing for this kind of war for their entire history. Every human culture had stories about fighting against impossible odds. Every human child grew up hearing about heroes who never gave up, even when everything seemed hopeless. Lisa Hayes looked at the burning alien convoy in the valley below and felt something she had not felt since the war began. Hope. Not hope that humans would win quickly or easily, but hope that they would never stop fighting. Hope that somewhere in the galaxy, other humans were doing exactly what she was doing. The aliens had made a mistake. They thought conquering humanity meant defeating human armies and capturing human worlds. But humanity was not just armies and worlds. Humanity was an idea. The idea that freedom was worth fighting for, no matter what the cost. And ideas were much harder to kill than armies. Lieutenant Commander Chris Martinez floated in zero gravity inside a secret base built into a large asteroid. 6 months ago, he had been a communications officer on the battleship UES Liberty. Now he was doing something that military experts said was impossible. He was connecting human resistance fighters across hundreds of different star systems. Chris worked 18 hours every day with a team of engineers and technicians who had escaped from conquered human worlds. They had built something the galaxy had never seen before. A communication network that could send messages instantly across vast distances without the aliens being able to listen in or stop the signals. "The beautiful thing about quantum entanglement," explained technical specialist Laura Kim as she adjusted their special equipment, "is that the aliens cannot intercept or block it. They use old-fashioned radio communications that travel through space. Our messages exist in quantum space where distance does not matter." Laura had been a graduate student studying quantum physics when the war began. Her university was destroyed in the first wave of alien attacks, but she escaped with her research and some experimental equipment. Now that research was helping humans fight back across the entire galaxy. The quantum communication network changed everything. For the first time since the aliens invaded, human resistance fighters knew they were not alone. A farmer on Proxima Centauri could talk directly to a mechanic on Kepler 442b. A doctor hiding in the ruins of New Boston could share medical supplies with resistance fighters on distant Titan's Gate. Commander Ryan Davis received the first message from the network while hiding in the mines of Titan's Gate. His small group of resistance fighters had been attacking alien patrols for months, but they felt cut off and hopeless. Then, Chris Martinez's voice came through their quantum radio as clear as if he was standing in the same room. "This is Resistance Command calling all human fighters," Chris said. "You are not alone. Humans are fighting back on 37 different worlds. Today, we all strike together." Ryan felt tears in his eyes as he listened to reports from other resistance groups. Humans were blowing up alien supply convoys on dozens of planets at exactly the same time. The psychological effect on the alien, Occupying forces was immediate and devastating. The aliens had never faced an enemy that could coordinate attacks across such vast distances. They were used to fighting separate battles on separate worlds. Suddenly, they were fighting one big battle that spanned the entire galaxy. Zephyrian Admiral Kethmos stood in his command center and stared at the tactical display showing attacks on 40 different worlds happening at the same moment. His staff officers looked confused and frightened. This was not how warfare was supposed to work. "How are they doing this?" Kethmos demanded. "How can primitive humans coordinate simultaneous attacks across hundreds of light years?" His intelligence officer, a four-armed alien with purple skin, shook his head. "We have been monitoring all human communications, Admiral. They are not using any technology we recognize. Their messages seem to appear from nowhere." What the aliens did not understand was that humans had always been good at working together when they faced a common enemy. Human history was full of examples of scattered tribes and nations putting aside their differences to fight against invaders. Now that cooperation was happening on a galactic scale, the network grew stronger every day. Chris Martinez and his team added new resistance groups to their communication system every week. Soon, they were connected to fighters on over 100 worlds. Each new connection made the network more powerful and more dangerous to the aliens. Dr. Patricia Lewis joined the network from her hidden laboratory on Mars. She had been working on theoretical physics problems when the war started. Now she was developing new weapons and sharing her designs with resistance fighters across the galaxy through Chris's quantum communication system. Every resistance group needs to build these new weapons, Patricia explained during a network-wide briefing. The aliens use energy shields to protect their ships and buildings, but these weapons do not try to break through the shields. They convince the shields to turn themselves off. Tony Clark, an engineer who had escaped from occupied Earth, worked with Patricia to turn her theoretical designs into practical weapons that resistance fighters could build using salvaged alien technology and common industrial materials. The first test came when Captain Maria Santos led an attack on an alien research station orbiting Jupiter. Maria commanded a small fleet of converted cargo ships and civilian vessels that had been upgraded with human-built weapons and equipment. "Target their main facility," Maria ordered as her ships came out of hyperspace. "Let us see how their shields handle a taste of human creativity." The new human weapons worked exactly as Patricia had predicted. The alien shields detected the incoming attack and tried to block it, but the quantum disruptor technology convinced the shield generators that they were being attacked by friendly aliens. The shields shut down automatically to avoid blocking what they thought were alien weapons. Suddenly, the alien research station was defenseless against conventional human weapons that should have been completely useless. Maria's small fleet destroyed the facility and escaped before alien reinforcements could arrive. News of the victory spread through the resistance network in minutes. Every human fighter across the galaxy heard that humans had not just survived an attack on alien forces. They had won a complete victory using superior tactics and technology. But the most important effect was not on humans. The most important effect was on the other alien species that the Zephyrians had conquered over the past century. These species had surrendered when faced with superior alien technology. They had accepted defeat because resistance seemed impossible. Now they were hearing rumors that humans were not just resisting. Humans were winning battles. Humans were teaching the galaxy that the Zephyrian Empire was not invincible. On the conquered world of Kethtar Prime, home planet of the Keth-Tani species, Resistance leader Veltan listened to intercepted human communications and felt something his people had not felt for 50 years. Hope. If the humans can fight back successfully, Veltan whispered to his secret followers, then maybe we can too. Chris Martinez did not know that his communication network was doing more than connecting human resistance fighters. It was spreading an idea that was more dangerous to the Zephyrian Empire than any weapon. The idea that ordinary people could fight back against overwhelming power and win. The quantum entanglement network carried more than tactical information and battle plans. It carried proof that the impossible was possible. It carried evidence that even the mightiest empire could be challenged by people who refused to accept defeat. The aliens had conquered the galaxy by convincing everyone that resistance was futile. Now humans were teaching the galaxy that resistance was not only possible, but effective. And that lesson was spreading faster than the aliens could contain it. Dr. Patricia Lewis worked in a secret laboratory hidden deep under the surface of Mars. Before the war, she had been studying theoretical physics at the university. Now she was part of a revolution that would change how warfare worked in the galaxy. The laboratory was built inside natural caves that had been expanded and reinforced with stolen alien materials. Patricia and her team of scientists and engineers worked around the clock to understand alien technology and find ways to defeat it. The aliens build everything using brute force, Patricia explained to her team as they studied pieces of a destroyed alien ship. Their shields work by creating massive amounts of energy to block incoming attacks, but there is a weakness in that approach. Engineer Tony Clark had escaped from occupied Earth in a stolen cargo ship. He brought with him detailed scans of alien ships and weapons that he had recorded during his escape. Tony was not a scientist, but he understood how to build things and make them work. So if their shields use massive energy, Tony said, we need massive energy to break through them, right? Patricia shook her head and smiled. That is what they expect us to try. But quantum mechanics works differently than normal physics. In quantum space, you do not need to overpower something to defeat it. You just need to convince it that it is attacking itself. The breakthrough came when Patricia discovered that alien shield technology was based on quantum interference patterns. The shields created a field that absorbed or deflected incoming energy attacks. But quantum interference could be manipulated if you understood the underlying mathematics. We do not need to break through their shields, Patricia told Tony as they worked on their first prototype weapon. We need to make their shields think that our weapons are actually their weapons. When the shields detect what they think is a friendly attack, they will shut down automatically. Building the prototype was harder than understanding the theory. Patricia and Tony had to combine human engineering with alien materials to create something that had never existed before. They worked for weeks with no sleep and very little food. The first test happened in the laboratory using a small piece of alien shield generator they had salvaged from a crashed ship. Patricia aimed their prototype quantum disruptor at the shield and fired. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien shield flickered and disappeared. The quantum disruptor had convinced the shield that it was being attacked by friendly alien weapons, so it shut down to avoid blocking what it thought was fire from its own side. It works, Tony whispered in amazement. We actually did it. But building one prototype in a laboratory was very different from building enough weapons to arm resistance fighters across the galaxy. Patricia and Tony needed to design weapons that could be built using materials that resistance groups could find or steal on conquered worlds. Captain Maria Santos commanded a small fleet of converted civilian ships that had become the mobile headquarters of human military operations. Her flagship was a modified cargo freighter called Freedom's Edge that had been equipped with experimental human weapons and alien technology stolen from destroyed enemy ships. Maria received the plans for the new quantum disruptor weapons through Chris Martinez's communication network. Her chief engineer, Lieutenant Ben Foster, studied the designs and shook his head. Captain, this technology is incredibly advanced, Ben said. We need specialized alien components that we do not have. Then we will get them, Maria replied. Plan an attack on the alien research facility orbiting Jupiter. Intelligence reports say they are developing new shield technology there. We can steal what we need and test our new weapons at the same time. The attack on the Jupiter research facility was the first real test of human quantum disruptor technology in actual combat. Maria's small fleet came out of hyperspace to find themselves facing an alien facility protected by the most advanced shields in the Zephyrian arsenal. "All ships target the main facility," Maria ordered. "Fire quantum disruptors on my mark." The alien shields detected the incoming attack and activated automatically. These were military-grade defensive systems designed to stop the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. They should have been completely invulnerable to anything humans could build. Instead, the shields flickered and died as the quantum disruptors convinced them that they were being attacked by friendly alien forces. Suddenly, the most heavily defended research facility in the star system was completely defenseless. "Conventional weapons fire at will," Maria commanded. The alien research facility was destroyed by human missiles and energy weapons that should never have been able to penetrate its defenses. The explosion could be seen from the moons of Jupiter as decades of alien research vanished in a ball of fire. But the real victory was not destroying one facility. The real victory was proving that human technology could defeat alien technology in direct combat. For the first time since the war began, humans had not just survived an encounter with superior alien forces. They had completely dominated the battle. Word of the victory spread through the resistance network faster than light itself. Every human fighter in the galaxy learned that they now had weapons that could punch through any alien defense. More importantly, every conquered alien species learned that the Zephyrian Empire was not invincible. Admiral Vextar stood in his command center and read reports of the Jupiter attack with growing alarm. His technical advisors could not explain how primitive human weapons had defeated advanced Zephyrian shields. "The humans seem to have developed some kind of new technology," his chief scientist reported. "Our shields registered the attack as coming from our own weapons, so they deactivated automatically." Vextar felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of conquest. Fear. Not fear of death, which was always possible in war, but fear that his enemy might be more intelligent than he was. The psychological impact of human victories was spreading beyond just military targets. On conquered worlds across the galaxy, alien occupation forces began to report increased resistance activity. Species that had accepted Zephyrian rule for decades were suddenly asking dangerous questions. If humans could build weapons that defeated Zephyrian technology, what else was possible? If humans could coordinate attacks across hundreds of star systems, why could other species not do the same thing? If humans refused to accept defeat even when facing overwhelming odds, maybe defeat was not inevitable. Dr. Helen Murphy, working with resistance scientists on dozens of different worlds, through the quantum communication network, made another breakthrough. She figured out how to reverse engineer alien faster-than-light communication systems. "We are not just stealing their messages," Helen explained during a network briefing. "We are learning to send false messages that look like they come from alien commanders. We can make their own communication system work against them." The technology war was turning into something the aliens had never experienced. They were fighting an enemy that seemed to learn and adapt faster than they could respond. Every new alien weapon or defense was quickly analyzed and countered by human scientists working in hidden laboratories across the galaxy. But the most dangerous weapon humans had developed was not quantum disruptors or communication hacking. The most dangerous weapon was hope. The hope that ordinary people could fight back against the most powerful empire in galactic history and win. That hope was spreading to every corner of the galaxy, and the Zephyrian Empire was discovering that hope was much harder to defeat than armies or fleets. You could not destroy hope with bigger weapons or stronger shields. Hope grew stronger every time someone refused to give up. The revolution began on Kethtar Prime, homeworld of the Kethtani species that had surrendered to the Zephyrian Empire 50 years ago. Veltan had been a young warrior when his people gave up fighting and accepted alien rule. Now he was an old leader who remembered what freedom felt like. Veltan stood in a hidden chamber deep beneath his planet's capital city and listened to intercepted human communications. The reports were incredible. Human fleets were liberating conquered worlds. Human scientists were building weapons that could defeat any alien technology. Human resistance fighters were teaching other species how to fight back. The humans have shown us something we had forgotten, Veltan announced to his followers through secret communication channels that reached every corner of his world. Surrender is not the only choice. Today we remember how to fight. The Keth Tani uprising began at dawn on the 50th anniversary of their surrender. Veltan's people attacked alien installations across their planet using weapons they had hidden for decades and new techniques they had learned from human broadcasts. The psychological impact was enormous because the Keth Tani had been considered the most thoroughly conquered species in the galaxy. If the Keth Tani could rebel, any species could rebel. Admiral Jack Peterson commanded the human fleet that had become the symbol of hope for oppressed species across the galaxy. His ships were a mixture of salvaged alien technology, human innovation, and desperate creativity. They looked like nothing any military academy would recognize, but they were winning battles that should have been impossible. Jack's flagship was the rebuilt battleship UES Unbroken, constructed from the wreckage of 3 different ships that had been destroyed in the early days of the war. It was held together with human engineering, alien materials, and the absolute determination of its crew to keep fighting no matter what. Sir, we are receiving requests for military assistance from resistance movements on over 200 worlds, reported Commander Susan Wright, his tactical officer. The Zephyrians are fighting rebellions on fronts they did not even know existed. Jack studied the tactical display showing the current state of the galaxy. Red dots marked worlds still under alien control. Blue dots showed liberated human colonies. But the most important markers were the yellow dots that represented worlds where other alien species were fighting for their freedom. The yellow dots were spreading faster than either red or blue ones. The Zephyrians built their empire on the assumption that superior technology means automatic victory, Jack explained to his senior officers. They never learned how to fight an enemy that refuses to play by their rules. The human strategy was completely unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of trying to defeat the Zephyrian Empire in traditional battles, humans were teaching the entire galaxy how to resist. Every successful raid was broadcast across the resistance network. Every new weapon design was shared freely with any species willing to fight. Every tactical innovation was explained in detail to anyone who wanted to learn. This approach confused and frustrated Zephyrian military commanders who were trained to fight conventional wars between organized governments and regular armies. They did not know how to fight an ideology that spread from planet to planet faster than their ships could travel. Dr. Patricia Lewis now worked from a mobile laboratory aboard Admiral Peterson's flagship. Her quantum disruptor technology had evolved into dozens of different weapons and defensive systems that resistance groups could build using local materials and stolen alien components. We have learned to reverse engineer every major Zephyrian technology, Patricia reported during a fleet briefing. But more importantly, we have learned to improve on their designs. Human weapons are now more advanced than anything the aliens have. The breakthrough that changed everything was Patricia's discovery of how to hack Zephyrian faster-than-light communication networks. Every order the alien high command sent to their fleets and armies could be intercepted, analyzed, and countered before it reached its destination. We are not just fighting them, Patricia explained. We are fighting them with perfect information about what they plan to do next. Commander Chris Martinez had expanded his quantum communication network to include resistance movements from over 300 different species. His asteroid base had grown into a floating city where humans worked alongside aliens who had escaped from Zephyrian prison worlds. The most important discovery Chris made was that humans were not the only species that refused to accept permanent defeat. Many alien cultures had strong traditions of resistance and rebellion, but they had been suppressed by decades or centuries of Zephyrian rule. Once these species learned that successful resistance was possible, they remembered how to fight. Captain, Maria Santos led the liberation of New Geneva, a human colony world that had been under alien occupation for 8 months. But the battle for New Geneva was different from earlier human victories because Maria's fleet included ships and crews from a dozen different alien species. "This is Admiral Santos of the Free World's Liberation Fleet," Maria announced, as her mixed fleet dropped out of hyperspace around New Geneva. "We are here to liberate this world from Zephyrian occupation. Any alien forces that surrender immediately will be treated according to galactic conventions. Any forces that resist will be destroyed." The Zephyrian garrison commander faced a fleet that included not just human ships with quantum disruptor weapons, but also Keth-Tani warships, Velkari fighters, and rebuilt vessels from a dozen other species that had thrown off alien rule. For the first time in galactic history, the Zephyrian Empire was outnumbered by its former subjects. The battle was over in 4 hours. The Zephyrian garrison surrendered after losing half their ships to weapons and tactics they could not understand or counter. News of the victory was broadcast across the galaxy through the Resistance network within minutes, but the most important part of the New Geneva liberation was not military. It was political. For the first time, liberated worlds from different species had worked together as equals to free another world. The galaxy was learning that cooperation was more powerful than conquest. Emperor Zethkar of the Zephyrian Empire stood in his throne room on the imperial capital world and read reports that made no sense to him. His empire was collapsing not because of military defeats, but because his subjects no longer believed that his rule was inevitable. "How is this possible?" Zethkar demanded of his advisors. "We have the strongest military in galactic history. We have technology that surpasses anything our enemies can build. How are we losing to a coalition of primitive rebels?" His intelligence chief, Admiral Keshavar, spread her 4 arms in a gesture of confusion. "Your Majesty, the humans have changed the nature of warfare itself. They are not trying to defeat us in traditional battles. They are teaching every conquered species in the galaxy how to resist our rule." What the Zephyrian leadership could not understand was that their empire had been built on a fundamental lie. They had convinced the galaxy that their technological superiority made them unbeatable. But humans had proven that intelligence and determination could overcome any technological advantage. More importantly, humans had proven that ordinary people, working together, could defeat the most powerful military force in galactic history. That lesson was spreading to every corner of the galaxy faster than Zephyrian fleets could respond. The revolution was no longer about humans fighting for their freedom. It had become about every species in the galaxy learning that freedom was something worth fighting for, and that victory was possible if they refused to give up. Admiral Peterson stood on the bridge of the UES Unbroken and watched yellow dots appear on his tactical display as more worlds declared their independence from Zephyrian rule. Each new rebellion made the next one easier because it proved that resistance could succeed. The galaxy was awakening from centuries of fear and discovering that the empire that had seemed invincible was actually built on nothing more solid than the belief that resistance was futile. And humans had taught the galaxy that resistance was not futile at all. Emperor Zethkar stood in the heart of his palace on the Zephyrian capital world and stared at reports that painted a picture of complete disaster. His empire, which had dominated the galaxy for over 1,000 years, was falling apart faster than his fleets could respond to new rebellions. "Explain to me how this happened," Zethkar said to his war council. His voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered more worlds than any leader in galactic history. But now there was something new in that voice, something his species had never experienced before. Fear. Admiral Vex Tar, the same commander, who had overseen the initial defeat of human forces, stepped forward. He had aged decades in the months since the war began. "Your Majesty, we made a fundamental error in our understanding of what defeat means to humans. For every other species we have conquered, Military defeat meant the end of resistance. For humans, it was simply the beginning of a different kind of war. The truth was becoming impossible to deny. The Zephyrian Empire had been built on a single assumption that had proven completely wrong. They had believed that technological superiority would always defeat inferior forces. They had never encountered a species that could adapt and evolve faster than superior technology could suppress them. "How many worlds are now in open rebellion?" Zethkar asked. His intelligence minister consulted her reports with trembling hands. "Over 400 worlds, Your Majesty. The rebellions are spreading faster than our communication networks can track them. Species that accepted our rule for centuries are declaring independence every day." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bay bridge of his new flagship, the UES Unbroken, and watched the tactical display showing the current state of the Galactic War. Jake had survived the destruction of his original command and had become one of the most effective human fleet commanders in the liberation effort. Around him on the bridge, officers from dozens of different species worked together as a single crew. Lieutenant Amy Carter was still his communications officer, but now she coordinated with alien resistance leaders from across the galaxy. Commander Steve Phillips had become an expert at training alien crews to use human-designed weapons and tactics. "Sir, we are receiving surrender offers from Zephyrian commanders on 43 different star systems," Amy reported. "Their empire is collapsing from the inside." But Jake's expression remained serious. He had learned something important during the long war. Military victory was not the same thing as lasting peace. "The real battle is not about defeating the Zephyrians," he said. "The real battle is about proving that the galaxy does not have to choose between tyranny and chaos." The final confrontation came not as a massive space battle, but as a transmission broadcast across every communication network in the galaxy. Emperor Zethkar appeared on screens in Zephyrian command centers and rebel hideouts alike. His image was transmitted to billions of beings on thousands of worlds. "Citizens of the galaxy," Zethkar began. His voice was steady, but everyone could see the defeat in his ancient eyes. "The Zephyrian Empire hereby recognizes the independence of all member worlds and formally dissolves imperial authority over occupied territories." Dr. Patricia Lewis watched the broadcast from her laboratory aboard the Freedom's Edge and felt something she had not experienced since before the war began. Not just relief that the fighting was ending, but hope that something better could begin. "You know what the amazing thing is?" Patricia said to Captain Maria Santos, who commanded the ship. "We did not win because we were stronger or more advanced than them. We won because we refused to believe that losing was permanent." The aftermath of the Zephyrian surrender was more complex than anyone had expected. Across the galaxy, newly independent worlds faced the challenge of rebuilding their civilizations and learning how to govern themselves after centuries of imperial rule. Admiral Jack Peterson found himself in an unexpected role. Instead of commanding military fleets, he was helping coordinate humanitarian aid and technical assistance to worlds that were struggling with the transition to freedom. His ships carried food, medicine, and engineering equipment instead of weapons. "Freedom is more complicated than tyranny," Jack told his officers during a staff meeting. Under the Empire, every world knew exactly what was expected of them. Now they have to figure out how to make their own decisions and solve their own problems. But humans had learned something during their war of resistance that proved invaluable during the peace that followed. They had learned that cooperation between different species and cultures was not just possible, but more effective than conquest and domination. Commander Chris Martinez expanded his quantum communication network to become the foundation of a new galactic communication system that connected independent worlds without giving any single government control over the flow of information. The network that had coordinated resistance now coordinated trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. "The beautiful thing about quantum entanglement," Chris explained to delegates from newly independent worlds, "is that it connects everyone equally. No one can control it or shut it down or use it to dominate others. The Zephyrian species itself faced a difficult transition. For over 1,000 years, their entire culture had been built around the idea of imperial dominance. Now they had to learn how to exist as equals among the species they had once ruled. Some Zephyrians adapted quickly to the new reality. Admiral Vexistar became an advisor to the new Galactic Cooperation Council, using his knowledge of imperial military tactics to help design defensive strategies for worlds that were still learning how to protect themselves. But other Zephyrians could not accept the end of their empire. Small groups of imperial loyalists established hidden bases in remote star systems and launched terrorist attacks against newly independent worlds. They believed that if they could create enough chaos and violence, the galaxy would beg for the return of imperial order. They were wrong. Every terrorist attack only strengthened the resolve of free worlds to work together for their mutual defense. The galaxy had learned that cooperation was stronger than conquest, and that lesson could not be unlearned. Dr. Helen Murphy established a new scientific institute on the former imperial capital world, where researchers from hundreds of different species worked together on projects that benefited everyone. The institute's first major achievement was developing technology that could clean up the environmental damage caused by centuries of imperial exploitation. Science works best when it serves everyone, Helen explained to her diverse research team. The Empire tried to use knowledge as a tool of control. We will use it as a tool of liberation. 5 years after the end of the war, Captain Jake Morrison attended a ceremony on Earth where a monument was dedicated to the humans who had died during the Resistance. The monument was simple: a black stone wall with names carved into it and a single inscription: "They refused to retreat." But the ceremony was attended by representatives from over 300 different species. The human resistance had become a symbol not just of human courage, but of the universal right to freedom and self-determination. "What we proved," Jake said in his speech at the ceremony, "is that no empire is too big to fail, no technology is too advanced to counter, and no people are too small to change the course of galactic history. The only requirement is the refusal to accept that defeat is permanent." The galaxy had learned the most important lesson in human history: that ordinary people working together and refusing to give up could overcome any force that tried to dominate them. It was a lesson that would never be forgotten, because it was written not in books or monuments, but in the freedom of every world that had chosen cooperation over conquest. The true battle had not been between humans and aliens, or between rebellion and empire. The true battle had been between the idea that might makes right and the idea that right makes might. And in the end, the galaxy had chosen justice over power, cooperation over domination, and hope over fear. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had liberated it, and that made all the difference.